ओम नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानंद सूरये सच्चित् सुखद स्वरूपाय स्वामी नेतापहारिणे. Welcome all. In the last chapter, 7th chapter of Jnana Yoga, we had seen that Swamiji explained God in everything. Today, in this 8th chapter of Jnana Yoga, titled Realization, which is again a lecture delivered by Swami Vivekananda in London, Swamiji explains that religion is realization. It is not mere talk or intellectual understanding. In this chapter, Swamiji explains Kathopanishad a bit. He says that Kathopanishad, some of the listeners might be aware of because of the English translation of Kathopanishad by Sir Edwin Arnold, called Secret of Death. Swamiji says that in previous lecture we saw how inquiry into outside nature failed to solve the mystery of existence, and hence Kathopanishad we find the inquiry turning within. What makes this human being alive and conscious? The answer for the question of existence of the universe and souls, that there is some supreme governor of the universe, is too human-centric, that somebody sits in the somewhere outside in the heaven and controls the affairs of souls and the world. Some sort of supreme governor is too human-centric. A human conception of personal God based on external limited sense perception fails too short as an explanation for existence of universe. Swamiji says, suppose a cow were philosophical and had religion, it would have a cow universe and a cow solution to the problem. And it would not be possible that it should see our God. Suppose cats became philosophical and they would see a cat universe and have a cat solution of the problem of the universe and a cat ruling it. So we see from this that our explanation of the universe is not the whole of the solution. Neither does our conception cover the whole of the universe. To find a common ground or common material for all spheres of existence and all souls, we have to give up search outside in limited sense perceived phenomena and turn within where there is a center at the innermost depth of human soul, which is the common ground or material. Ancient sages discovered this center in human soul. Next, Swamiji narrates the story of Kathopanishad. In Kathopanishad, there is a story of boy Nachiketa. His father, a sage, conducted a Vedic sacrifice, and as a part of sacrifice, he was donating the cows to the invited guests, that is the Brahmanas. But the father was donating old, lame and barren cows, not the healthy ones, which is not the proper way to conduct the ritual. So this boy got perturbed over this and he did not like the father's conduct. But he could not directly counter the father, being respectful towards the father. So he approached the father and indirectly asked the question as to, since father you are donating things belonging to you in this sacrifice, whom would you give me to? The father first ignored the question, but when the boy persisted, the father in disgust said, I will give you to death, to Yama. Yama is the lord of death, the god of death. So the story goes that the boy Nachiketa quickly went to the world of death, to the palace of King Yama. But the Yama was out of station. He had gone outside, so the boy had to wait for 3 days. So when the god of death returned and saw that a Brahmana boy is waiting for him for 3 days, which is not good. So he offers 3 boons to Nachiketa and says, ask 3 boons. The first boon Nachiketa asks is that his father's anger should go away. And second, he asks about some Vedic ritual sacrifice, which, when conducted, takes the soul after death to heaven. So these two boons were quickly granted by Yama. And then the third boon was the crucial spiritual inquiry, the theme of the Upanishad. It is that there is this difficulty. When a man dies, some say he is, others say he is not. So the question is of what happens to the soul after death. And the Nachiketa wants this to be known from Yama. Now Yama got frightened. He had been very glad to grant the other two boons, but this next one was tricky. So he said, the gods of in the ancient times were puzzled on this point of death. This subtle law is not easy to understand. Choose some other boon, O Nachiketa. Do not press me on this point. Release me. But Nachiketa insists on the same question. So the Yama tries to tempt him with various temptations, like the celestial nymphs of the heaven, chariots, wealth, sense enjoyments, beautiful damsels, etc. But the boy is firm on his question. Seeing the firmness of the boy, then Yama, the king of God, becomes pleased, and then he answers that perfection is one thing and enjoyment is another. That is, in Sanskrit it is called Shreya and Preya. That which is perfection is Shreya, and that which is enjoyment is Preya. And these two, having different ends, engage men differently. He who chooses perfection becomes pure. He who chooses enjoyment misses his true end. Both perfection and enjoyment present themselves to man. The wise man, having examined both, distinguishes one from the other. He chooses perfection as being superior to enjoyment. But the foolish man chooses enjoyment for the pleasure of his body. Yama says, O Nachiketa, having thought upon these things which are only apparently desirable, thou hast wisely abandoned them, and you have chosen the Shreyas, that which is beneficial, and not that which is only temporary, apparently pleasant. Kathopanishad has many beautiful mantras, some of which we have discussed in the album, the playlist Arunachala Musings, like the Vidyayam Antare Vartamanaha Swayam Dhiraha Panditam Manyamanaha, and Na Samparaya Pratibhati Balam Pramadyanta Vittamohena Mudham. Also, Yama continues his discourse, and the gist of it is that desires obstruct our vision of truth. Religion is a fact to be experienced and not argument. Swamiji says, the question is as to whether this world exists or not has not yet been decided, and the debate between idealist and realist is endless. Idea of realization is a great one, and we should hold on to it. Religion is realization and not mere talk. Then Swamiji says that the idea of heaven, which is nothing but the sense pleasure infinitely multiplied, is a relative one and depends on who desires it. Different people have different ideas of heaven. It actually means life with happiness and without any unhappiness, which is impossible. And it is an entirely sense perception based idea. But the absolute joy presented by Vedanta is the real solution to the problem of existence. And all external joys are but bit manifestation of that absolute joy. But to understand that, we have to go through the negation, and then positive side will begin. We have to give up ignorance, falsehood, in order to see the truth. And then the world will be deified and will be revealed in true light. Then Swamiji narrates the famous chariot analogy of Kathopanishad. Swamiji says, here is a beautiful figure. Picture the self to be the rider and this body the chariot. The intellect to be the charioteer, mind the reins, and senses the horses. He whose horses are well broken and whose reins are strong and kept well in the hands of the charioteer, that is the intellect, reaches the goal, which is the state of him, the omnipresent. But the man whose horses, that is the senses, are not controlled, nor the reins, that is the mind, well managed, goes to destruction. So this is the famous chariot analogy, and this helps spiritual aspirants to discriminate between the insentient body and the sentient, conscious, blissful self. The famous mantra of Kathopanishad, Esha Sarveshu Bhuteshu, that we discussed in Arunachala Musings, also comes in Kathopanishad. And Swamiji explains that as this Atman in all beings does not manifest itself or himself to the eyes or the senses, but those whose minds have become purified and refined realize him. Beyond all sound, all sight, beyond form, absolute, beyond all taste and touch, infinite, without beginning and without end. Even beyond nature, the unchangeable. He who realizes him frees himself from the jaws of death. But it is very difficult. It is as it were walking on the edge of a razor. This is again another famous mantra of Kathopanishad, which narrates the difficulty of walking the spiritual path. Kshurasya dhara nishidaya. In fact, the title of a movie and a famous book, Razor's Edge, is taken from this Kathopanishad. Swamiji continues, walking on the edge of a razor. The way is long and perilous, but struggle on, do not despair, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. Swamiji then counters the argument that is generally put against this spiritual pursuit. That is, what is the utility of this? What is the utility of realizing the Supreme? What does it give us? Swamiji, in the words of Swamiji, if on the utilitarian ground it is good for men to seek for pleasure, why should not those whose pleasure is in religious speculation seek for that? Because sense enjoyments please many, they seek for them. But there may be others whom they do not please, who want higher enjoyment. The dog's pleasure is only in eating and drinking. The dog cannot understand the pleasure of the scientist who gives up everything and perhaps dwells on the top of a mountain to observe the position of certain stars. The dogs may smile at him and think he is a madman. Perhaps this poor scientist never had money enough to marry even and lives very simply. Maybe the dog laughs at him, but the scientist says, "My dear dog, your pleasure is only in the senses, which you enjoy, and you know nothing beyond. But for me, this is the most enjoyable life. And if you have the right to seek your pleasure in your own way, so have I in mine." So, in a sense, Swamiji says those who are attached to the senses and body cannot understand the higher joys of intellectual and spiritual pleasures. So, if they are justified in their pursuit of seeking happiness in the sense pleasure, so are those spiritual seekers and religious men justified in seeking their pleasure in the highest reality. If a man or woman finds happiness in higher religious pursuits and not in sense pleasure, others who disagree with him or her should not judge him or her from their perspective. The miseries of earth will always remain the same. It is like a chronic rheumatism. Swamiji says that the sum total of pleasure and pain and the misery and happiness and problems of the world remain the same. They simply change shapes and places. This we can see practically, as well as if we analyze calmly, theoretically, and intellectually we can understand this position. And thus we have to come to the conclusion that the perfection is only in infinity, not in the names and form, not in the finite things. It is only in our real nature, which is infinite pure consciousness and bliss. And it can never be manifested fully through finite. This is the crux of the matter. We think that we can manifest our real self through name and form, through time and space. But when the realization of this fact comes that it is impossible to manifest the infinite through finite, then comes the renunciation. And after renunciation, morality and charity follows. Swamiji says, life on the plane of spirit is the only life, and let us all try to attain to this realization. So in this lecture of realization, essentially taking the help of Kathopanishad, Swamiji stresses the fact that religion and spiritual realization is an actual realization, actual experience, and not just theory or belief. In the next chapter, Swamiji will take up unity in diversity. Om Tat Sat.